Hello, this is Marianne, and for the next hour I will be reading articles from the January 2026 issue of the Buffalo Latino Village on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Page 1. Keep School 3 Open, Defending Buffalo's Lower West Side, Families and School Children Against Political and Educational Vacuum Cleaners. Buffalo's Board of Education has floated the closure of the Dejaville Porter Campus School PS3, a proposal that has sparked strong resistance across the west side. While the district faces an $80 million budget deficit, community members argue that closing school number 3 would come at an unacceptable cost, the displacement of hundreds of children and the dismantling of a cultural cornerstone. At a rally held this week, parents, educators, and neighbors made their voices clear. School number 3 is more than a building. It is a lifeline for the Latino community. Nearly 80% of its students come from Hispanic Latino families, many of whom walk to school daily. The school's bilingual programs and neighborhood accessibility make it uniquely positioned to serve families who rely on its proximity and cultural sensitivity. Opponents of the closure stress that removing school number 3 would fracture a dense, walkable community, forcing children into schools farther away and eroding the trust built between families and educators. Buffalo Mayor-elect Sean Ryan has also raised concerns, noting that school number 3's bilingual program and concentrated Hispanic population make it irreplaceable in serving the west side. Critics of the closure process point out that the recommendation to shutter school number 3 emerged suddenly without full committee deliberation, undermining transparency and community trust. One committee member described the move as opaque politicking, warning that it risks displacing more than 500 students unnecessarily. While the Board of Education has paused an immediate action until new leadership takes office in January, advocates insist that the fight is far from over. Closing School 3 would not only weaken educational access but also erase a vital cultural identity from Buffalo's west side. As one rally participant put it, "Find another way. Our children deserve stability, dignity, and schools that reflect their community." Open letter to Buffalo's Board of Education by Alberto O. Capas, resident of Lower West Side. Dear members of the Buffalo Board of Education, I am writing to you as a concerned resident of the Lower West Side community and as publisher of the Buffalo Latino Village to urge you to reconsider the proposed closure of Buffalo's School number 3, Dejaville Porter Campus School. This institution is far more than just a school building. It is a vital cultural and educational anchor for Buffalo's Puerto Rican Latino community and a beacon of bilingual education. School number 3 serves nearly 80% Puerto Rican Latino students and stands as one of only 6 bilingual schools in the city. Closing it would dismantle a critical bilingual program that nurtures language development, cultural identity, and family engagement. Such a move risks fragmenting a concentrated community and weakening the trust that families have placed in the district. The school's location in a dense, walkable west side neighborhood makes it accessible to many children who walk to class daily. Closing school number 3 would force families to rely on buses or endure longer commutes, creating significant barriers for working parents and potentially reducing attendance. Keeping the school open aligns with Buffalo's commitment to safe, accessible, and community centered education. Moreover, the closure disproportionately impacts Puerto Rican Latino families, raising serious concerns about equity and inclusion. The district must prioritize solutions that preserve cultural hubs and bilingual education opportunities, demonstrating a commitment to diversity, fairness, and inclusion. Rather than closing school number 3, I urge the district to invest in targeted academic supports such as strengthening attendance initiatives, expanding bilingual teacher training, and partnering with community organizations for tutoring and enrichment. Closure signals abandonment, while renewal signals a commitment to student success. Families and advocates have expressed that the closure process felt politically influenced and rushed. Keeping school number 3 open would allow time for transparent dialogue and collaborative problem solving, fostering trust essential for long term stability. In conclusion, while closing school number 3 may offer short term financial savings, it would cost Buffalo dearly in community trust, equity, and cultural vitality. I respectfully ask the board to keep school number 3 open and invest in its renewal as a moral commitment to the future of Buffalo's children, and most importantly, make sure to include parents and teachers in the decision making process, giving them the opportunity to present their case. A message to our community in 2026: time to reflect and recommit. As we enter 2026, I want to speak to my community with honesty, respect, and deep love. For decades, we have built a cultural presence in Buffalo, one that is vibrant, creative, and impossible to ignore. Our music, dance, art, food, festivals, and stories have become part of this city's identity. At the center of the cultural heartbeat stands El Batey Puerto Rican Center, the original and enduring hub of Puerto Rican arts and culture in Buffalo. El Batey taught us to celebrate who we are, to see ourselves in art, music, and history. For over 10 years, El Batey has been the template, the blueprint, the seed from which so much has grown. Most dance groups, cultural programs, Latino food vendors, and artistic initiatives that exist today, no matter what name they carry, can trace their roots to the work that began there. That legacy continues today, and it deserves recognition. Our expanding cultural landscape. We have seen new institutions emerge, such as the Hispanic Heritage Institute, opening its first center in upstate New York. Long standing traditions like the Grease Pole Festival continue to bring us together in celebration, memory, and joy, along with the beloved Puerto Rican Hispanic Parade on Niagara Street. We also recognize the continued contributions of organizations like the Hispanic Women's League, helping young Latina women through mentorship, scholarships, and leadership development. Add to that the work of Latinas Evolving, Los Taínos Senior Center, PRACA, Amore and Heritage, Latino Veterans, Bell Center, and Hispanic United of Buffalo, and we begin to appreciate the framework for a Buffalo Latina Foundation rooted in community progress. We have celebrated civic milestones such as the election of Talia Rodriguez to the Buffalo School Board, a moment that reflects the growing presence of Latino leadership in public education. We have also witnessed the rise of Los Artistas del Barrio and Raíces Theater Company, two dynamic organizations that give voice to Latino actors, writers, and musicians. Their platforms ensure that Buffalo's Latino creativity continues to shine. The Amapola Arts Studio, a new Puerto Rican creative space, adds to this cultural movement by offering art classes, cultural events, and community workshops. And Buffalo Latino Lens, a media project and TV program airing on WBBZ TV, documents and celebrates Latino life and history throughout Western New York, and Ubuntu and Bomba Yagé, following in El Batey's footsteps, including Artesanía Boricua Familiar. Together, these platforms, traditional and emerging, form the living pulse of Buffalo's Latino Renaissance. Sour notes, where we must do better. Latino business. Despite this artistic success, our business and economic growth have lagged. Niagara Street is still the heartbeat of our community enterprises, but it lacks the identity, energy, and innovation needed to make it a true cultural and commercial destination. We must infuse it with soul, vision, and coordinated planning to drive consumer traffic and long-term investment. Second issue, the neglect of the Latino poetic art mural. While we celebrate one of our most powerful cultural treasures, the Latino poetic art mural of 1984 remains abandoned in NFTA storage. This mural, created to honor our voices, poetry, and struggles, has been cast aside for decades. There has been no advocacy, no urgency, and no collective action from our own community or political allies to rescue or restore it. A community that celebrates its culture cannot afford to neglect its cultural memory. This neglect extends to El Buen Amigo, a Latin American community association which has served Buffalo's Latino community for over 50 years, yet continues to struggle for recognition and funding support. Next issue, the larger truth. As we celebrate our progress, we must also face the difficult truth. Our civic leadership has not grown at the same pace as our cultural achievements. We have more festivals, more art programs, and more visibility than ever before, yet our social, business, and economic development and our political conditions remain largely stagnant and unfortunately controlled or manipulated by a few. We still face school closures in our neighborhoods, gentrification and housing displacement on the west side, limited representation in city decision making, fragmented leadership and lack of unified advocacy, persistent poverty and youth violence, no strong pipeline for new Latino civic leaders. We have cultural pride, but not enough civic power. We have visibility, but not enough influence. We have talent, but not enough coordinated leadership. This is not a criticism, it is a call to action. The next decade must be different. If the last decade was about cultural expression, the next must be about civic development. We need to build a new generation of Latino leaders, a unified community agenda, stronger advocacy organizations, political education for our youth, partnerships that move beyond celebration toward transformation. We cannot keep relying on the same few people to carry the weight of the entire community. We cannot continue to react. We must prepare, plan, and position ourselves. If necessary, add more seats to the table. Our children deserve more than festivals. They deserve futures. They deserve better education, more opportunity, safety, representation, community recognition, not individual recognition. A new chapter begins in 2026, a chapter where we honor our roots and build civic power, a chapter where we celebrate our identity and demand accountability, a chapter where we uplift our youth and prepare them to lead, a chapter where we stop waiting for change and start creating it. El Batey showed us what's possible when a community invests in its children and culture. Now we must show what's possible when a community invests in its future. This is our moment, this is our responsibility, this is our time to grow, not just artistically but civically. Page 2. Weaponized incompetence and Buffalo's financial crisis. People keep talking about Buffalo's 70 million deficit like it fell from the sky, as if the city suddenly woke up one morning and realized it was broke, as if deficits appear overnight, as if this is not the result of years of political games, wasteful spending, and a level of weaponized incompetence that should be considered criminal negligence. Deficits grow slowly, quietly, predictably, and with the full knowledge of politicians who pretend to be shocked when the truth finally surfaces. For more than 15 years, state leaders watched Buffalo's structural problems deepen, knowing the city was using temporary revenue patches to plug long-term holes. They saw the control board's warnings, they saw rising personnel costs, declining reserves, insufficient municipal aid, and a city tax base too weak to sustain basic services, and instead of choosing responsibility, they chose optics. While Buffalo's financial crisis simmered in the background, New York State approved a $1.4 billion stadium subsidy for the Pegulas, the largest stadium subsidy in American history, to the richest sports owners in the country, with 600 million coming from the state and 250 million from Erie County. This happened while the city at the heart of that region was already drowning financially. How did you justify giving nearly $1 billion in public funds to billionaires while your own city government is running on fumes? You don't. You can't. Not honestly, not ethically, and not without political incentives. Then State Senator Sean Ryan, Governor Kathy Hochul, and every lawmaker who voted for that budget knew exactly what Buffalo's books looked like. The financial data wasn't a secret. The decay of the city was not hidden. The deficit didn't magically appear after the stadium deal was signed. This was a crisis decade in the making, and yet when given the choice between stabilizing a working class, majority minority city, or handing a corporate welfare share check to the ultra rich, they chose the Pegulas. This wasn't the only time Albany decided to invest everywhere except the actual communities in crisis. They also approved more than $1 billion for the Kensington Expressway project, a massive Capitol building that looks good on paper and photographs, well in campaign mailers, but does nothing to address the actual financial survival of Buffalo's neighborhoods, services, or infrastructure. It is a project now on hold with $1.2 billion at a standstill because it was a rushed approval. What are the priorities of these politicians? It has become evident that it is not the welfare of people, communities, or cities. A city struggling to fund police, fire, sanitation, and basic operations, where families are dealing with rising costs, declining services, and decades old underinvestments, where neighborhoods are still living in food deserts, crumbling sidewalks, aging housing stock, and where schools are under-resourced. In a city with a 70 million deficit, you don't throw billions at concrete, you don't subsidize billionaires, and you invest into the people. But that would require political courage, something that is in short supply. Politicians do not avoid solving problems because they are unaware. They avoid solving problems because the problems benefit them. A struggling city gives them leverage, a crisis gives them political oxygen, a collapsing municipal structure gives them the opportunity to swoop in later and present themselves as the hero who finally fixed it. It's not leadership, it's manipulation. Politicians like Sean Ryan sat in Albany for over a decade, voting on budgets that kept Buffalo's municipal aid flat while approving the largest discretionary capital spending packages in the region's history. He championed the stadium deal, he supported the Kensington investment, he participated in every budget cycle that ignored Buffalo's growing fiscal hole. And now, once he became mayor elect, he suddenly found religion and fiscal responsibility. Now he is in Albany to warn them that the city is in dire straits, that the crisis has been brewing for 20 years. Now he says the city needs emergency intervention. Where was that urgency before he decided to run the city? Where was that alarm while he was voting for billion-dollar wasteful projects? Where was that honesty when his seat was in Albany, not City Hall? This kind of leadership isn't accidental incompetence, it is strategic neglect, a pattern from the playbook, and a method of governing where the public is kept struggling, uninformed, and grateful for whatever crumbs they receive. This is what people mean when they talk about wasteful spending and weaponized incompetence. It is how politicians choose optics over obligation and why our communities stay poor while corporations stay rich. And until people confront the hypocrisy of leaders who knew the crisis was coming and helped fuel it anyway, nothing will, nothing will change. Not the deficit, not the services, not the neighborhoods, not the political games. Our city deserved better than this, our people deserved better than this. Yet we will continue finger pointing and being used as political pawns for those stunted by their thirst for unhinged power. You are listening to a reading of articles from the Buffalo Latino Village, January 2026 edition on the Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. Page 3, A Sage Amongst Us by Angelica Aquino. Very fortunate and extremely lucky to have crossed paths with Derek, the resident sage at West 74th Street in New York City. In a world increasingly chaotic and filled with demands that overstretch our senses and soul, it is refreshing and uplifting to come across someone filled with sensitivity and humanity who takes the time to understand the interweaving of the mind and soul in a brief encounter and a simple hello. With a deep sense of purpose, Derek takes every moment and second one speaks to him to understand the person, the soul, and the spirit in his presence. I had the opportunity, along with many others, to come across him as we navigated a new phase in our professional journeys. Meeting him renewed the sense that we are interconnected as living beings, and that indeed we are spiritual beings having a human experience. With a deep sense of spirituality and purpose, he greets, listens, and guides everyone with whom he comes across. His primary gift is tapping into the collective and individual humanity that is our common denominator. There are no barriers. The light and wisdom shared transcends race, gender, and generations. His presence is a compass that anchors a flock of souls reinventing themselves while contributing to the daily fabric of New York City. With a sharp sense of community, he aids, assists, and opens his daily sage advisories. It is not about questions, it is all about being a conduit of wisdom, reflection, and community building. In a world so polarized, his wisdom brings a safe passage for democracy to coexist and build bridges. The holiday season is here. The biggest gift many of us had was the opportunity to interact with the sage of West 74th Street as we navigate our common human experience. No matter who you are, where you come from, and where you are going, the conversation with the sage is all about building community while using self-reflections. The biggest gift we can give each other is the opportunity to connect it at a human level without pretenses, titles, and ego. The sage thank you for taking the time to share your light and wisdom. Thank you for building community one greeting at a time. I leave you with this poem which reflects the light that we all have and that you with your presence ignite. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We all are meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates us. Marianne Williamson, A Return to Love, Reflections on the Principles of A Course in Miracles. Page 4, Un Momento Justo por la Paz by Victoria Ross. Thanks Alexica, Alicia, and WNYPC members. Many of you already know about the WNY Peace Center and the staff, members, activists, and supporters who make it all happen. However, for those of you who don't, let me share with pride more about the people and actions. First, meet Alexica Perez. Alexica was on staff at the WNYPC as an advanced year intern from Fordham University's online MSW degree program. As of December the 20th, she has completed her internship and studies and is an MSW. Alexica is an activist, Boricua, and a social worker deeply committed to improving people's quality of life and increasing peace and justice for our community. Although no longer an intern, we are happy to report that she will continue working with us on select campaigns while also continuing her full-time work at Best Self, where she helps them orient and onboard staff, organize community events, and much more. Alexica is a lifelong Buffalonian. Her adorable dog Max and many of her friends join us in lots of campaigns and events. We are so grateful for Alexica. Meet our wonderful office manager Alicia Quebral. Alicia started with us in August and had made a huge difference in our functioning and operations. Alicia is amazing, hardworking, and efficient, devoted to the WNYPC's mission and goals, as well as to making sure all is running smoothly. Alicia's wonderful work and insights add so much to the WNYPC and better assist us in movement building and making progress in the struggle. While originally from Buffalo, Alicia traveled and moved, then coming back here to home base. We so appreciate her wealth of experience, skills, commitment, and attention to detail. Thank you, Alicia. We also want you to meet others connected to the WNYPC, our members, coordinating board, task force chairs, and conveners, allies, and partners too. Alberto Capas and many of our beloved columnists are in that number, particularly Talia Rodriguez and Eri Alvarado. We hope to include you, dear reader, in that number. It's easy to become a member and get involved. One golden opportunity is our upcoming annual membership meeting on January the 24th, 2026 at 1:30 p.m. at 1272 Delaware Avenue. Anyone can attend, and members will get to vote on proposed, new and simplified bylaws, as well as our budget for the year. To become a member, just donate at wnypeace.org. You can join the Latin America Solidarity Committee at its next planning meeting, Monday, January the 5th, 7 p.m. at Canisius University Science Hall, or email convener Terry Bison at bisson@canisius.edu. You can connect with the other task forces, environmental justice, power to the people, and resist militarism at the annual meeting, or get in touch with the chair convener through 716-332-3904. Next article, The Chokehold of Carceral Finance on Western New York by Eri Alvarado. Pattern recognition is the foundation of understanding how society works and how people function within the predetermined framework. I could not help but recall the raids that happened in Buffalo and the surrounding areas from 2016 until 2018 and the communities most affected. Back in October of 2016, ICE raided local Mexican restaurants that were crowded community hubs, hiring community members and providing stability to local Mexican community. The four local restaurants were Don Tequila, El Agave, and La Divina Mexican Store, owned by Sergio Musino. There was a deafening silence from our elected and community leaders then that I cannot help but compare with the silence of recent raids. The violent ICE raids in western New York mirror the region's history of incarceration, surveillance, and federal dependency. This relationship is not an anomaly, it is a continuation of a long-standing pattern where the region stabilizes its economy by hosting institutions of control, prisons, detention centers, law enforcement hubs, and federal enforcement operations. This pattern dates to the collapse of Buffalo's manufacturing economy, when policymakers failed to rebuild industry and instead leaned into carceral infrastructure as an economic replacement. When Bethlehem Steel and other major employers collapsed, Western New York needed new sources of stable employment. Instead of reinvesting in innovation or economic diversification, leaders turned to state prisons in rural counties, federal law enforcement offices, ICE detention and processing, sheriff expansion, and jail expansions. This shift was not ideological, it was economic because control became profitable. The ICE detention complex mirrors the earlier prison boom and follows the old template. Rural towns get jobs, politicians get union support, counties get federal money, local businesses get contracts. So Western New York uses detention the way it used incarceration as a jobs program masquerading as public safety. Buffalo invested heavily in the Regional Intelligence Center, license plate readers, and police and ICE data partnerships because surveillance networks bring federal grants, equipment upgrades, cross-agency contracts. ICE feeds this system with intelligence sharing, warrant collaboration, data integration, and surveillance becomes the new economy, replacing manufacturing with state monitoring. Using the immigrant community as an economic commodity and profiting from detaining immigrants, transferring immigrants, surveilling immigrants, running federal operations targeting immigrants, and politicians avoid acknowledging this because it exposes a devastating truth that immigrants' suffering has become a quiet and easy economic stabilizer. Buffalo's legacy of segregation and exclusion through redlining, racist housing policies, police expansion, neighborhood surveillance, it all aligns perfectly with ICE's current operational approach. ICE isn't an outsider, it fits Buffalo's existing socio-political DNA. This system prevents WNY from building industries rooted in innovation, supporting immigrant entrepreneurship, fostering multicultural growth, and attracting global talent. ICE has become the economic crutch politicians use instead of doing real work. WNY's political economy treats control as currency. Western New York has quietly built an entire economy around ICE, an economy that relies on detention, surveillance, and fear. Politicians won't admit it because it exposes their hypocrisy, but the truth that in this region, immigrant suffering has become a business model. Every detained immigrant means federal money. Every transfer means overtime. Every partnership with ICE means new vehicles, new equipment, new budgets. And when you follow the money, you understand why both parties defend ICE behind closed doors, even the ones who claim to be progressive. Western New York's political class hides behind speeches about inclusion while protecting the very systems that criminalize not only immigrants but all of our citizens. They benefit economically and politically from militarized police and the presence of ICE, while telling the public they have nothing to do with it, and their hands are tied to addressing the issues. This is not an enforcement issue, it is not a public safety issue. It is an economic dependency created by politicians who chose control over development and fear over opportunity. Buffalo deserves better than an economy built on incarceration, and immigrant families deserve better than being treated as federal reimbursement slots. Our region deserves leaders who stop hiding behind ICE, the military industrial complex, or fear mongering designed to create chaos to legislate funds into the hands of donors. They deserve leaders ready to build an economy rooted in dignity, creativity, and real opportunity for those they have been entrusted to represent and protect. Until then, ICE will remain the political business tool meant to subjugate and another glaring example of our moral failure as a society. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo Latino Village on the Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. Next article, Say No to New Year Resolutions by Virginia McIntyre. New Year's resolutions are specific goals that people set for themselves at the beginning of the year. While they can be effective, they often come with a lot of pressure and expectations, leading to disappointment when not achieved. Some common examples of New Year's resolutions include losing weight, saving money, or quitting a bad habit. While these are all admirable goals, they often focus on the outcome rather than the journey, without considering the actionable steps you need to get there. On the other hand, New Year's intentions allow for more flexibility and self-compassion. They are about setting a positive direction for your life and being open to different paths to reach that destination. For example, instead of setting a goal to lose weight, you can set an intention to prioritize your health and well-being. This may involve making healthier food choices, such as preparing a meal every Sunday afternoon for the week ahead, or incorporating more physical activity into your routine and regular weekly self-care sessions. The focus is not solely on the number on the scale, but on creating a healthier and more fulfilling lifestyle. One of the best ways to make positive changes in your life is to set your own intentions at the start of a new year. Although mindful intentions can be set at any time of the year if you haven't set yours in the first month of the year. Here are some of the main benefits of setting intentions for the new year instead of resolutions. More holistic approach, focus on progress, not perfection, flexibility and adaptability, sustainable habits, mindful reflection, positive mindset. In any case, I wish every reader a 2026 that exceeds their expectations. May we all know a year of peace, joy, and compassion. Page 5. Melinda Capeles, homenajeada en Puerto Rico. El mes pasado en Puerto Rico, el alcalde de Yabucoa reconoció a Melinda Capeles Román, oriunda de Buffalo, como artista yabucoeña por su destacada labor en la actuación, el canto, la danza y las artes escénicas. Su talento la ha llevado a escenarios locales e internacionales, incorporando el lenguaje de señas y dejando huella en cada presentación. Como maestra y entrenadora, inspira a nuevas generaciones de artistas. Estamos orgullosos de verla representar a Yabucoa con tanta dedicación y pasión, dijo el alcalde. Melinda Capeles es un orgullo de Yabucoa y un orgullo de la comunidad puertorriqueña latina de Buffalo. Next article. Talía toma su asiento. Talía Rodríguez ha tomado oficialmente su asiento en la Junta de Educación. Es un momento de orgullo para el West Side y para todos los que valoran un liderazgo fuerte y comprometido con la comunidad. Sus años de periodismo, abogacía y trabajo comunitario, junto con su experiencia como abogado y residente de larga trayectoria en el West Side, la han preparado excepcionalmente bien para este cargo. Confiamos en que aportará integridad, visión y dedicación al trabajo que viene. Ahora es momento de ponerse a trabajar abordando temas como el ausentismo escolar, las suspensiones, la seguridad en los autobuses escolares, la educación bilingüe y el cierre de escuelas. Ahora que ha sido elegida, sigamos participando y fortaleciendo nuestra comunidad juntos. Si desea mantenerse en contacto o tiene preguntas, puede comunicarse directamente con Talía Rodríguez en la Junta de Educación de Buffalo en City Hall. Page 6. Comenzar el 2026 honrando nuestras manos artesanas por Dianís Román Rodríguez. Comenzar un nuevo año siempre nos invita a reflexionar sobre quiénes somos y de dónde venimos. Para quienes vivimos en la diáspora, este ejercicio de memoria se vuelve aún más profundo. Por eso quiero iniciar este 2026 presentando a nuestros lectores a grandes artesanos de nuestra isla, hombres y mujeres cuyas manos han contado nuestra historia mucho antes de que muchos de nosotros partiéramos de Puerto Rico. Enero abre con el legado de don Celestino Avilés, nacido en 1925 y fallecido en el 2004, uno de los santeros más importantes y reconocidos de Puerto Rico. Natural de Orocovis, don Celestino se formó como carpintero, albañil y artesano, encontrando en la talla de santos en madera nativa su forma más profunda de expresión. Cada pieza que salió de sus manos fue mucho más que una figura religiosa, fue un acto de fe, identidad y resistencia cultural. Además de la talla de santos, don Celestino trabajó la semilla del corojo, creando piezas tanto en tallas como en sortijas, demostrando una versatilidad artística admirable. Su compromiso con la preservación de la artesanía puertorriqueña lo llevó a fundar el Museo Orocobeño Familia Avilés, hoy conocido como el Museo Orocobeño Celestino Avilés Meléndez, un espacio dedicado a honrar y proteger el legado de los santeros y artesanos de nuestra isla. Su impacto trascendió generaciones. En el año 2001, el National Endowment for the Arts reconoció su trayectoria otorgándole el prestigioso National Heritage Fellowship, uno de los más altos honores para artistas de las artes populares en los Estados Unidos. Además, don Celestino fue fundador del Encuentro Nacional de Santeros, un evento que por décadas ha reunido a artesanos de todo Puerto Rico para celebrar, compartir y mantener viva esta tradición centenaria. A más de 15 años de su partida, las manos de don Celestino continúan inspirando. Sus obras nos hablan del valor de lo hecho a mano, del tiempo, de la paciencia y del profundo amor por la cultura. Para quienes criamos a nuestros hijos fuera de la isla, su legado nos recuerda la importancia de enseñarles de dónde venimos y por qué nuestras tradiciones merecen ser conocidas, respetadas y preservadas. Que este comienzo de año sea también un reencuentro con nuestras raíces, que a través del arte y la artesanía sigamos transmitiendo la historia de Puerto Rico de generación en generación, con orgullo y con alma. Nota: la información y las imágenes que acompañan esta columna fueron obtenidas de fuentes públicas disponibles en la web, incluyendo publicaciones del Instituto de Cultura Puertorriqueña. Next article: a resource for Latino writers. Latinidad announces 2025 Best Books of the Year by Marcela Landrés, edited by Alberto O. Capas. January 2025, Latinidad, the long-running e-zine founded by editor and literary advocate Marcela Landrés, has released its highly anticipated Winter 2025 Best Books of the Year list. This annual tradition spotlights outstanding works across genres, amplifying Latino voices and celebrating diverse storytelling. Saludos. Not everyone has the good fortune of living near an indie bookstore. This year, Latinidad encourages readers to shop online at Café con Libros, an Afro-Latinx women-owned bookstore founded by Kalima de Zuze. Physical books, ebooks, and audiobooks are available at www.cafeconlibrosbk.com. These selections make excellent gifts for the holiday season, said Landres. They represent the creativity, resilience, and imagination of our community. The Latinidad List Winter 2025. A novel, My Train Leaves at 3 by Natalie Guerrero is a propulsive portrayal of liminal spaces between inertia and transformation. Debut novel, Afia in the Land of Wonders by Mia Araujo. It's a thrilling reimagining of Alice in Wonderland, exploring the tension between fear and curiosity. Short stories, Guatemalan Rhapsody by Jared Lemus Raw, sharing tales of hubris, penance, and grace. Narrative nonfiction, Art Above Everything by Stephanie Elizondo Griest. It's a celebratory examination of the sacrifices and exaltations of female artists. Poetry, Dream of the Bird Tattoo by Juan J. Morales. They are delicate poems probing the borders of dreams, memories, and grief. Cookbook, My Half Latinx Kitchen by Kiera Reicht Ruiz. It's a culinary journey capturing childhood memories through traditional dishes. Self-Help, I Am Worthy by Christine Gutierrez. It's an empowering guidance for women reclaiming joy and self-worth. Young Adult, When We Ride by Rex Ogle, a gut-wrenching story of friendship colliding with ambition. In the category Middle Grade, we have Graciela in the Abyss by Meg Medina. It's a transporting voyage to an otherworldly ocean of spirits and land dwellers. In the category Children's Picture Book, we have Fix It Familia by Lucky Diaz. It's an inspiring reminder of imagination's power to solve and uplift. Resources for writers. Latinidad also highlights opportunities for emerging and established writers. They have the Witness magazine, Submission Period, January, accepts fiction, non-fiction, and poetry. Zero Street Fiction, Submission Period, January the 1st until April the 3rd. They accept LGBTQ literary fiction with emphasis on BIPOC and queer authors over 50. Next resource is the Anderson Center Artist Residencies. The deadline is January the 13th. Residencies in visual, literary, and performing arts. The Hazel Rowley Prize, deadline March the 1st, $5,000 prize for the first-time biographers. About Latinidad, founded in 2003 by Marcela Landres, Latinidad is dedicated to helping Latinos get published and amplifying diverse voices in literature. The e-zine has become a trusted resource for writers, educators, and readers seeking authentic representation. For more information, contact Marcela Landres, email marcelalandres@yahoo.com. Page 7, Dominicans Making Buffalo Home by Eri Alvarado. As Dominican culture begins to make its way into Buffalo's cultural landscape, one of our priorities is ensuring that our traditions are represented with authenticity, accuracy, and deep respect. There is growing curiosity and appreciation for Dominican heritage, which is beautiful to watch after so many years of seeing Dominican culture absent from Buffalo spaces. It is beautiful to see organizations finally paying homage to our culture. Honoring our ancestors requires more than performative gestures or surface level interpretations. It requires us to educate ourselves on what we are putting out for consumption of those who may know nothing to very little about Dominican culture. Our festivals, dances, and rituals are not shows, they are living archives of who we are, of our history, our ancestral costumes, and our roots. Dominican carnival masks are not random designs or generic horns. Each one carries the spirit, history, and identity of the region it comes from. Every color, shape, and symbolism tells a story of resistance, ancestry, and the communities that preserved these traditions for centuries. So, as we work to bring true Dominican representation to Buffalo, we want to begin by introducing some of the masks that are central to Dominican Carnival, their origins, meanings, and the regions they represent. These are not decorations, they are cultural artifacts, and sharing them with accuracy is part of our responsibility to the people who created, protected, and passed these traditions down to us. El Barrio Caribe is committed to elevating Dominican culture in a way that is rooted, respected, and real, the way of our ancestors intended. Here are the 15 most popular carnival masks in the Dominican Republic. Diablos Cojuelos, La Vega. The Diablos Cojuelos are perhaps the most iconic figures of Dominican Carnival. Their name translates to limping devils, a reference to a legend in which mischievous spirits were punished by being sent to earth with a limp. Their masks are flamboyant, horned, and brightly colored, symbolizing chaos, resistance, and the blending of Spanish, African, and Taino influences. They embody both satire and survival, mocking authority while celebrating resilience. Lechones, Santiago, Pepines, and Los Jardines. The Lechones of Santiago are guardians of carnival order. Their pig-faced masks with elongated snouts and horns are instantly recognizable. Traditionally, lechones carry whips to maintain discipline in the streets, ensuring that festivities remain safe. They represent community protection, authority, and the balance between joy and responsibility. Taimáscaros, Puerto Plata. The Taimáscaros are a fusion of Taino, Spanish, and African traditions. Their masks often incorporate indigenous motifs, colonial references, and African spiritual symbols. They honor the island's layered history, embodying cultural syncretism and the survival of ancestral memory through art. Toros and civiles, Bonao. In Bonao, carnival features ritual duels between toros and civiles. The toros wear fierce bull masks and costumes, while the civiles challenge them with whips. This playful confrontation symbolizes bravery, endurance, and the spirit of revelry that strengthens community bonds. Los Pintaos, Barahona. Los Pintaos are living canvases. Instead of masks, participants paint their entire bodies in vivid colors and patterns. This tradition traces back to cimarrones, escaped enslaved Africans who used body paint as both disguise and expression. Today, los pintados symbolize rebellion, freedom, and Afro-Dominican pride. Roba la Gallina, nationwide in all Dominican Republic. Roba la Gallina is a comic figure found across the country, usually portrayed by a man dressed as a pregnant woman with exaggerated features. The character parodies poverty and resourcefulness. With humor and satire, Roba la Gallina critiques social issues while celebrating the creativity of survival. Platanuses Cotuí. The platanuses of Cotuí are rooted in African tradition. Their costumes are made from dried plantain leaves, and their masks are often carved from gourds. Created by enslaved Africans working in Cotuí mines, they symbolize resilience, ingenuity, and the preservation of African heritage in Dominican culture. Papeluses Salcedo. The Papeluses are descendants of the Platanuses, but their costumes are crafted from strips of paper instead of plantain leaves. This adaptation reflects creativity and resourcefulness, showing how communities innovate while keeping traditions alive. Los Alibaba, Santo Domingo. Inspired by the tale of Ali Baba and the 40 Thieves, this carnival group is known for sequined costumes, turbans, and choreographed dances. Los Alibaba bring theatrical flair to carnival, blending Middle Eastern fantasy with Dominican rhythm, symbolizing modern carnival energy and spectacle. Guloyas San Pedro de Macorís. The Guloyas are one of the most celebrated carnival traditions recognized by UNESCO as tangible cultural heritage. Originating from Afro-Caribbean immigrants known as cocolos, they perform theatrical dances with feathered costumes, narrating biblical stories and ancestral legends. They embody cultural preservation and Afro-Caribbean pride. Los Se Me Muere Rebeca, La Vega. This satirical character depicts a woman carrying a doll while crying out, "Rebecca is dying." The performance exaggerates desperation and poverty, serving as social critique. It highlights the struggles of marginalized communities while using humor to provoke reflection. Los Califé, Santo Domingo. Los Califé are poets of carnival. Wearing simple masks, they deliver sharp rhymes and verses that critique politics, injustice, and social issues. They give voice to the people, turning carnival into a stage for truth-telling and resistance. Los Indios, nationwide. Los Indios honor the island's indigenous Taino heritage. Their costumes feature feathers, beads, and ancestral motifs, symbolizing resilience and the survival of pre-Columbian identity. They remind audiences of the deep roots that predate colonization. Los Macaraos, San Juan de la Maguana. The Macaraos wear bright costumes adorned with streamers and animal-inspired masks. Rooted in Afro-Dominican traditions, they symbolize purification, spiritual heritage, and the vibrancy of African costumes that continue to shape Dominican identity. Los Vaqueros, Montecristi. Los Vaqueros reflect the cowboy culture of Montecristi, tied to Spanish colonial ranching traditions. Their costumes and performances celebrate rural identity, cattle culture, and the Hispanic heritage of the Dominican countryside. Closing reflection, Dominican Carnival is one of the richest in the Caribbean. Each mask is not a random design but a cultural archive carrying centuries of history, satire, resistance, and artistry. By sharing these narratives in Buffalo, we ensure Dominican traditions are represented with dignity, depth, and authenticity. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo Latino Village on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Page 9. Lehigh Construction Group Inc. is soliciting proposals from qualified subcontractors for a new industrial building project in West Seneca, New York. Trades will include demolition, flat work, joint filler, stainless fabrications, doors, frames, aluminum entrances, flooring, lockers, window shades, freight elevator, dock equipment, specialties, paint and wall covering, roofing, millwork, foundations, structural steel, landscaping, ground improvement, and others. For more information and a pre-qualification form, scan the QR code that is on page 9. Page 10. AKG announces Let Us Gather in a Flourishing Way exhibition of Latinx painting. The Buffalo AKG Art Museum proudly announces Let Us Gather in a Flourishing Way, a groundbreaking exhibition exploring contemporary Latinx artists' innovations and interventions within the traditions of painting. Featuring 58 artists from the Latin American and Caribbean diaspora, the exhibition celebrates diversity, challenges boundaries, and affirms the central role of Latinx painters in shaping American contemporary art. Organized by the Buffalo AKG Art Museum and curated by Associate Curator Andrea Alvarez, the exhibition will be on view from March 6th through September the 6th, 2026. Before traveling nationally to the Des Moines Art Center, the Phoenix Art Museum, and the Frye Art Museum in Seattle. Inspired by former U.S. poet laureate Juan Felipe Herrera's poem Let Us Gather in a Flourishing Way, the exhibition title reflects the abundance of these artists' contributions and frames a vision of Latinx art that is, like the diaspora itself, infinitely complex. It has been the honor of my career to work closely with so many innovative and outstanding artists to organize this exhibition, said Andrea Alvarez, Associate Curator at the Buffalo AKG Art Museum. Taken together, the works in Let Us Gather in a Flourishing Way demonstrate the remarkable breadth and depth of contemporary painting by Latinx artists and the many ways in which those artists continue to interrogate established traditions. This exhibition affirms that these artists are key figures in American contemporary art, shaping its discourse for decades. The exhibition embraces cacophony and heterogeneity, inviting audiences into a vibrant and evolving network of ideas rather than presenting a finished narrative. A bilingual catalog will accompany the exhibition, featuring scholarly essays, an artist roundtable discussion, newly commissioned poetry, and full-colored illustrations of all works. Available in the AKG shop, the publication offers a panoramic overview of contemporary Latinx painting at a pivotal moment in its history. Support and sponsorship. Let Us Gather in a Flourishing Way is made possible by the Henry Luce Foundation and the Terra Foundation for American Art. Major support is provided by the Rich Family Foundation and the Rich Family Fund for Community Access, with generous contributions from Catherine Belts Foley, Additional sponsors include the Blum family, Charlie James Gallery, Fred A. Shanner, Lehman Maupin, and Luis de Jesus Los Angeles. The exhibition is presented with leadership support from the Let Us Gather in a Flourishing Way International Exhibition Committee. Programming is supported by New York State Assembly member Jonathan de Rivera. There are over 50 Latinx artists featured in the exhibition. About the Buffalo AKG Art Museum, founded in 1862, the Buffalo AKG Art Museum is the sixth oldest public art institution in the United States. For more than 160 years, the museum has collected, conserved, and exhibited the art of its time, often working directly with its living artists. This tradition has produced one of the world's most extraordinary collections of modern and contemporary art. In June 2023, following the most significant campus development and expansion project in its history, the Buffalo AKG reopened to the public. The project was funded by a $230 million capital campaign, the largest ever for a cultural institution in western New York, including $195 million for construction and $35 million in operating endowment funds. About the Henry Luce Foundation. The Henry Luce Foundation enriches public discourse by promoting innovative scholarships, cultivating new leaders, and fostering international understanding. Through grant-making and leadership programs, the Foundation advances work in the fields of Asia, higher education, religion, and theology, art, and public policy. About the Terra Foundation for American Art, the Terra Foundation for American Art expands narratives of American art through our grants, collection, and initiatives. With offices in Chicago and Paris, we work with organizations to foster intercultural dialogues and encourage transformative practices locally and globally. This was a summary of the article. The backside of the newspaper has an announcement. El Departamento de Transporte del Estado de Nueva York necesita su opinión. Futuro de la autopista NYS, Ruta 33. El evento va a ser el jueves 22 de enero de 5 a 7 de la noche en el Centro para Personas Mayores de Cheektowaga en el 3349 Broadway, Cheektowaga. Va a ser una sesión informativa pública, la tercera, para compilar las opiniones de la comunidad para definir una nueva visión para la autopista NYS, la Ruta 33. Los temas que se abordarán incluirán tráfico y tiempo de viaje, espacios verdes y parques, paseantes y ciclistas, economía, tránsito, salud y seguridad. You have been listening to a reading of articles and features from the January 2026 issue of the Buffalo Latino Village. Your reader has been Marianne. Thank you for listening.